I think it's the owl. Marimba. We're gonna get photo on that. Yeah, I think that's our, basically, we're just testing this, you know, like. Yes. It's not letting me switch it from the microphone.
This evening, we are going to get started. Welcome to the Hill CDC community meeting. We are also streaming live right now to our Facebook, so please bear with us on any technical configurations that we need to update. I'm so happy to see everyone got their plate, and you're going to enjoy a robust meal. I see everybody is partaking, and we want to once again thank Tanya's Catering. Tanya, raise your hand. And Seller's Market and Grill was so courteous to bring food tonight. Pro bono, we are so grateful. So raise your hand, please, Abdullah. Good. All right. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. If you didn't pick up an agenda, you can find one on the table. This way. You can find one on the table in the front. Alrighty. First and foremost, let me acknowledge the Hill CDC team who every day shows up and labors on behalf of this community. I want to recognize Shavesha Chaney, who's our programs and policy associate. I want to recognize Brett Miller, who is our senior director of operations and finance. I want to recognize Jordan Smith, who is our Main Street and cultural manager. Wade Larson, who is our public ally, who's supporting our work across the organization. I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone here. Michelle Watson, who is our real estate development manager, and myself, I'm president and CEO of the Hill CDC, Miranda Milan. All right, so let's jump into it here. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. That right there. All right. All right, so on the agenda tonight, I'm gonna talk fast because we got a lot to cover, but if I'm talking too fast, just tell me to slow down a little bit, okay? We are gonna cover the Center Avenue projects. I know you all remember a couple years ago, the Urban Redevelopment Authority went to request for proposals for the Center Avenue corridor. After many, many years of us advocating for the Center Avenue corridor to be redeveloped, that happened, and so they are here this evening, sitting in the rear. They're going to give an update, and they are early on in the agenda. That doesn't happen often, does it? So we are going to have them up soon. We're going to talk about the Registered Community Organization Ordinance. You may have heard some acronym floating around called RCOs, which is Registered Community Organizations. We're going to talk about that. There's some information that you need to be aware of relative to RCOs. We're going to talk about the Cultural, Commercial, and Innovation Corridor this evening, which means that you're going to hear about a NFASI. You're going to get the NFASI update. NFASI is the gallery. Who knows where Doc's New Ideas used to be? Okay, on Center. Doc's New Ideas is across from the Y, and it is now an artist residency. You may have noticed the gallery space in there with Black art. So we're going to tell you about that. The National Endowment for the Arts and the Hill District Mural Project is coming up, so we are so grateful for their support. That is major, right, to have the National Endowment for the Arts here in the Hill District supporting our work and supporting a public mural that we're going to be partnering with young people on. But Jordan Smith is going to tell you all about that. Yancey Consulting is a firm that's going to help us really push forward on this incredible vision of having a Black cultural, commercial, and innovation corridor in the Hill District, and you're going to hear from Shavesha on Hill Tech Society. You're gonna get an update on the Northside Elks Lodge, which was demolished this week, sadly. So you're gonna get an update on that. We have some pictures to share with you, as well as a little bit of context around why the Hill CDC prefers preservation when possible, both cultural preservation as well as physical preservation when possible. You're gonna get an update on the Lower Hill development. You're gonna get an update on the New Granada Square project. And last but certainly not least, you are going to get a full-blown presentation from Beacon Communities and Uptown Partners over here at this table on the Standard on Fifth. This is the project that is navigating its way through the development review panel. They scored favorably at the committee level, and now it is your turn to vote. So if you're a resident, raise your hand. All right, I love it. This is what I like to see. If you're a resident, you are going to vote tonight on this project. And the reason why we love the development review process is because you have an opportunity to vote. And we only send projects your way that have already been, have received a deep dive review. So with that said, we're gonna move forward. So housekeeping, first is have fun. Be in community with one another. All right, we don't like those stale meetings. I mean, you know, this is kind of like, this is community church, right? And so we want you to have fun and be in community with one another. One of the things that COVID did was it really broke down those relationships and those bonds in community. And we want to pivot back to being in a deeper sense of community with one another. So that's the first rule. We will take limited Q&A after every agenda item if time allows, because we have a lot to get through, and because we want to make sure y'all can get y'all to-go platters. We may not have as much time for Q&A between each agenda item. Online users should feel free to drop questions in the chat on Zoom or Facebook Live. We are monitoring Facebook Live, and your questions will be asked from Hill CDC staff. If you want to ask a question live, please leave a note in the chat and we will unmute you at the appropriate time. Again, please be patient with us if we have any technical issues. We are navigating a couple of computer systems at once. Again, it's last but not least, if you disagree with respect, okay? No name calling, no personal attacks and the like. We can't tolerate that because that's a part of being in community, is a part of respecting that we all may have differing opinions. So we may not always agree, but we're going to respect one another, okay? All right, so let's move forward.
I got it.
Okay. All right, so you all know that the Hill CDC is a place-based organization focused on the revitalization of the Hill District. We are where cultural legacy meets future innovation. So we have one foot firmly steeped in the past, our history, our tradition, our heritage, and we have one foot firmly planted in the future, which is to bring forth new development, to bring forth development that honors that cultural legacy. We are celebrating now 36 years of operation. And so that's something to be proud about, because as you all know, sometimes community organizations in our neighborhoods, they come and go, right? And so it's hard work to be around for 3 decades and a half. And so we're here because you're here, right? If you're not here, there's no point in the Hill CDC existing. And so I thank you all for continuing to support our work. Our mission is to work in partnership with residents and stakeholders to create, promote, and implement strategies and programs that connect plans, policies, and people. Plans, policies, and people, to say it together with me, to drive compelling community development opportunities in the Greater Hill District, right? We don't just want to sit and wait for it to happen. We want to be a part of it actively happening, but we don't want it to happen to us. We want it to happen with us, all right? And for us, somebody said for us, all right? We operate in 3 distinct buckets: people, place, and policy, okay? So we build up the people through our economic development programs. We do affordable home ownership. We do entrepreneurship training. If you need entrepreneurship training, if you have a business idea and you're like, where do I get support? You can come to the Hill CDC. If you want to become a homeowner, you can come to the Hill CDC. Now, we have more interested home buyers than we have homes right now. And that's part of the reason why our demolition practices in the city are problematic, because we need to repair structures and bring structures back online, not necessarily be demolishing them. And we also need the funding to do that. All right. So the real estate development, see, it's church, right? It's church. So the real estate development work that we do is the commercial core and home ownership. As I mentioned, our economic development programs include the business and entrepreneurship work, home ownership preparation, and arts and culture, which is critical to our work. So a lot of people may not understand, but what we know from national studies is that art is an economic driver. Art brings more economic development to neighborhoods. And unlike a lot of folks who want to use artists, and particularly Black artists and other artists who are people of color, they want to bring them to the community, make the community hip and cool and funky, and then they have to go because the neighborhood has then been gentrified and no one can afford the rent anymore. So the Hill CDC is an anti-gentrifying CDC. We are focused on building the community up with the people who are here and also working with those who believe in that same vision, okay? Last but not least is our policy and planning work. If you've heard me talk about this before, you know this is the work that gets us in trouble. But what did John Lewis say? It's good trouble. He said it's necessary trouble, right? Because if we're not in trouble, we probably aren't on the job. And so we can't get in trouble by ourselves. We got to get in trouble with you, right? We need your support to get in some of this good trouble. And this good trouble is really about making sure that we're promoting equitable policies and practices that that fulfill our community's vision, okay? And of course, there's neighborhood planning, which you all know lots about. All right. So just introduce Jordan Smith. You all probably know Jordan Smith. Jordan's been with the organization. I guess this is coming up on his 3rd year. He had taken a stint on some entrepreneurial efforts, and then he came back and he's now our cultural and mainstream manager. But he told me, he said, "Remember, this is my first in-person Hill District community meeting." I couldn't believe it, but that's how long COVID was, right? And so, so we're happy to have you back, Jordan. Welcome. We're really excited to see the work you're going to bring. And then Wade, I just introduced Wade. Wade is a public ally fellow, and he's been an awesome addition to the team. So first up, we're going to have the Urban Redevelopment Authority give us updates on Center Avenue. And when they get to the grocery store, I'm going to ask them to bring up Abdullah to co-present those 2 slides. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, great. Thank you so much. What's that? Oh, yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Link. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh. I see some familiar faces. I see some unfamiliar faces. So it's good to see folks again and meet some folks for the first time. Before I get into the updates, if it's okay, and I know you have a packed agenda here, I'm going to just go through. How do I get? Oh, the clicker. There we go. Oh, sorry. And hi to everyone who's watching you live. Which one's the arrow? Oh, the big middle one. This one.
There
we go. I apologize. That's my fault. I'm good at like financing buildings. I'm very better at technology. Anyway, so about us. So who's the URA? So the URA is, we work on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh. When I say the city of Pittsburgh, I mean all of the city of Pittsburgh. We are a quasi-governmental agency, of course, working with our partners, the city council, the city government. But really, our role is to work on behalf of the community, on behalf of our taxpayers, that's homeowners, that's small businesses, that's everyone who's working, living, and are you good? And driving economic development and quality of life here in the city of Pittsburgh. We do that through a variety of methods, financing, real estate, entrepreneurship, housing, with a overall goal of creating thriving neighborhoods, healthy communities, sustainable businesses for the benefit of all Pittsburghers. So the URA, I think, I sit at the URA, so I take this for granted, but the URA, we've gone through some changes the last several months, and I think it's important, candidly, it's interesting, you mentioned COVID. We've been sort of insular for quite some time. We haven't been out as much as we should be. I expect we'll be out more often, as we're able to do more events like this and get out to as many communities as possible, which we do a great job of. But our leadership team is has changed a bit, and we have some different faces, some new faces who are leading the URA. It's Sushila Namani Stanger, who I'm not sure if Sushila's going to make it, but she's our new executive director. I'm just super excited to have Sushila back at the URA. I mean, I've worked with Sushila for a very, very long time in her career, and I think she's going to I know she's going to bring and is bringing just tremendous leadership, vision, organization, and drive to the URA. And Sushila, if anything, is an expert in what we do. And I'm excited for Sushila's drive and vision for the Urban Redevelopment Authority.
And she's the first woman.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Tanika, so I'm going back and forth, right? So she's the first woman in URA history in 77 years to be the executive director. So it's a big deal. So I wanted to make sure I added that slide because there's a new URA and the tide is turning. People have been listening. We've been calling. We've been holding people accountable. And so it's no longer this white male dominated organization. So, I mean, Tom's here, but Tom is here. And so we wanted to make sure that the slide was up there so that you understand that there's a shift occurring. So that was, I'll be picking, I'm a church girl, y'all know that. So I'll be piggybacking. Go ahead, Tom, go ahead.
We good?
Jennifer, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Well,
Well, Jennifer's up there, fantastic. Damara, who's also.
Damar's the
Okay.
first Black woman to ever be the CFO
Right.
of the URA. She's from Homewood, Westinghouse Bulldog. So it's a big deal. And all that just happened under our new mayoral leadership.
And there's a much younger version of myself. That's great. That's a very old photograph. Yeah, that's me. Tanika, excited? Yeah.
Yeah.
David and Shannon Barkley are senior legal counsel. So this is really the executive team at the URA, and just wanted to sort of reintroduce ourselves in some cases, but introduce ourselves in some cases. And it's a new day for the URA, and we're excited about that. It's also maybe a bit quietly, maybe not so quietly. We have changed our mission and our vision at the URA. I'll read this, which I don't love to read slides, but just our mission statement is simple, but I hope powerful. To foster a sustainable prosperity across all of Pittsburgh with a vision for Pittsburgh's economic well-being, grown and shared equitably across all communities, are empowered with effective social and financial resources to thrive. And we went through this change, fairly recently, and but it is our new mission and vision, and we're committed to and to drive that. Yeah. Values, with that mission and that vision, we've created a new set of values that we work towards every day around collaboration and engagement. Here today, economic justice, empowering our staff, which is super important. Inclusive community, mission-driven investments. What does that mean? Drive projects that support social impact. How can we continue to promote prosperity regardless of market returns? And of course, honoring our public trust. And I think that's an important point for this meeting. I'm a practitioner, I'm staff at the URA. I work to get deals done, I work to get projects done. It's incredibly important for our community partners to give us input. It's important for you to talk to our board. Just as an example, our next board meeting is April 13th. Our board meetings are public. It's important for folks to attend, provide comment. We don't need to all hear good things. If you disagree with what we're doing, it's important to hear it, to be honest with you. It's important for our board to hear from all of us. My job is to match vision, community vision, and match that with the tools that we have, and try to put deals together that make sense and that can work on behalf of everybody. But it's critically important for us to honor that trust, and for to hear from everyone, and to hold us accountable for that trust. So I just wanted to pause there on that particular value, our value statement. Another point, we talk about empowering staff. I showed showed the previous slide of the executive team. The folks who are doing the work every day, and hopefully many folks here have met many of these folks. This is our project development team. I know Esther has been here recently to present to this group on some of the projects I'll be updating. Does an amazing job. Brandon, Julia, Bailey's new to our organization, Lily, Maya. These folks who work at the URA every day, they're fantastic. 6 folks who are working every day to drive development, working on the projects here in this community here on Center Avenue here in the Hill District. Just to give some context, there are 8 project managers at the URA. 6 of them are on the slide, working here. So tremendous effort, and you're really wonderful. Not just good people, but true professionals who are experts in their fields to help drive the work that we're doing. And I thank them personally if you're happy watching right now. Okay, updates, which I think if I go like this, maybe this is that work. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm actually going to kind of start on this slide and then go back to the next slide. So as Marimba noted, over the last few years, and I'm sure folks are aware, the URA's board accepted essentially proposals from 7 developments to do development along Center Avenue, getting essentially site control of a variety of URA properties to build new real estate and to enact their visions. And we've made, and I'll talk about the progress here. My personal goal, and I told the board this at the end of the year at our board retreat. I've been tasked as the chief development officer, like we have to get deals done, right? And I said, well, okay. So for these Center Avenue projects, my commitment is to get at least 4 of them, at least under financial closing, under construction this year. And I'm saying that to you as honoring public trust. That's my goal. That's my drive. And that actually doesn't include the grocery store. But of these 7 Center Avenue projects, that's our goal. We've been fundraising. We meet every day. That's a project team on the previous slide. We're working very closely with each of the developments to try to ensure that to the best extent possible, all these developments can happen. And I'm confident at least for, hopefully, more than that, we'll get to at least the financial closing in 2023, which means you should start to see vertical development. I'll start with Solonix. So Solonix, I'm just going to talk about what the projects are. I'm not going to take for granted that everybody knows what these deals even are, even though we think about them every day. So it's the renovation of the building at on Howard Street for Solonix's new space. Is Monica here? Where's
Yes.
Monica? Hi. It's good to see you. You want to give your own update? No, I'm just kidding. So we're working with Monica to build out the space there, about 2,800 square feet. Total development, about 1,100 square feet for the salon and additional apartments is the project that we're working on together. We talked recently, we're talking about potentially going to a phased approach, and I know we've received some new numbers to think about a way to do a phased approach to really focus on the business, the commercial portion, and frankly, your salon is the first phase. So that's where we are with this project. Right now, of course, there's exclusive, the projects under exclusive negotiations with the URA, which the URA board accepted. We think our next step with that would be to get a proposal that we can all agree on to the board, and then, work toward the financial closing. And that's something that we're working on with Monica and her team and with the Solonix project. Sankofa Square, another project that I think was back in 2021. The URA board accepted a proposal for the development of Sankofa Square. Again, not taking for granted that folks know what this is, but it's the redevelopment of property into new construction of a 45,000 square foot commercial structure, parking, about 12,000 square feet of some retail, 30,000 square feet of additional commercial office space. The project cost, and anything with real estate, I know these slides, and one of our staff members kind of looked at me when I said, in real estate, nothing's absolute all the time. But, so dates and dollar numbers can fluctuate sometimes, but it's roughly about a $9 million project plus that we're working on with Sankofa. Our next step there is also to get to a financing plan with the developer. Hopefully over the next, several months, we'll be able to get to that. There's fundraising happening, but we meet, monthly with our team to work with the developer to hopefully get to that financing plan, something that can be feasible and we can get to a project development. So that's where we are with Sankofa Square. Yeah. Yeah, I can. Sorry. The what's the address? I have the lot and blocks in front of me.
It's right next to the YMCA.
Yeah, next to the, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, right next to the YMCA. Thank you very much. Yep. I can read all the lot and blocks, but that's not very interesting. Yeah. Studio Volsi. So we're excited about this project as well. Rhythm Square. So, just to give a status update, again, the URA's board has accepted a proposal for development for Studio Volsi, which means we're under contract with Studio Volsi to what we call a disposition contract. I would say, it's akin to sort of a sales agreement, but essentially gives a formal proposal that the URA board has accepted with a disposition agreement, which allows us to work with that developer to get to a final financial closing and construction start on this particular development. So we're working very closely with the developer, Studio Volsi, and just to that point at 2239, 2225 Center Avenue, to get the project done. That's the project. It's about 4,000 square feet, about 8,600 square feet of commercial space, about 4,000 square feet of new housing. It's about a 2-story building. So that's the project we're looking at. I mentioned before projects that we think are getting closure. You may see, I just kind of, we're here talking, our board meets on April 13th. I expect April 13th, there may be some new news on Studio Volsi that give this a chance to get under to close to closing on a financial and under construction in 2023. So it's something that we're excited about. We're working very closely with Studio Volsi to achieve that. I'm not going to go back to my other slide to talk about the other 4 projects. Starting with our Kindle. So our Kindle basically, this is basically, it may have even closed now, but it should close like in the next 30 days, if not sooner. So it's gone through all of our board actions, it's financed. It's basically a matter of getting to a closing. There's no more board actions to take. So we're excited for the Arkindle project to be under construction very soon. I would expect maybe Q3, if not sooner, for construction to start for the Arkindle project. Amani CDC at Queens Apartments, again, 2159 Center Avenue, project that was, among the 7 that the board, again, accepted the proposal. Have the project, not only disposition contract, but also we execute, the URA's board authorized execution of the deed to Amani CDC. So we've been working very closely with Amani CDC again to ensure that all the financing's in place. There's been very, very good progress with the developer to ensure that all the financing's in place. I believe, and I'm telling you as a practitioner, in my role as chief development officer, that I believe there's a good chance that Q2, Q3, Q2, I'm using too many acronyms. Q2, Q3 of this year, which means in the next 6 months or so, I believe there's a very good chance we could get to a financial closing for this particular project, which means you could see the construction starts by the end of this year. So we're excited about that. Again, April 13th board meeting, there may be specific actions you'll see, but we'll see how that plays out. But that's where we are with the Amani CDC and the African Queens Apartments, and we're very excited about that. Big Tom's, is done. I mean, it's gone through all the board process. We financed it. There's a last piece we've got to get done. There's a last piece, and I'm sure many folks in there. But there was sort of after this finance closed and construction started, another element to the building arose that needed to be taken care of. So we're working very closely with Tom and we're again fundraising to fill that gap. I'm confident we will, and we'll get the project done. If we don't, you can come find me and say, Tom, completely lied to us. But we're confident we'll get that done. We've been working really hard to make sure the funds are there and identifying sources we can use to ensure that the building is completely renovated to all necessary code and everything, and that we've raised the money to get that done. So we're excited for Tom's project. Communion Place, the last one I think I'm updating on, correct? At 2932 Wiley Avenue. What is it again? Just making sure folks not taken for granted. Rehabilitation of a 3-story building. Construction of a new 4-story building, about 2,000 square feet of office. We'll describe it as collaborative space. 8 new residential units, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, offices, et cetera. It's about a $4.5 million project. Similarly to all the others I've talked about, the board has accepted the proposal from Communion Place. We have the project is within the disposition contract in place as authorized by the URA board. We are working to finalize the financial closing for Communion Place, which means at that point, the project will have all the money it needs and it will begin construction. Similarly to Amani and some of the others, I'm confident we might get there by the end of this year, again, Q3 this year. So we're working very diligently and we think we're close. So, the short story here is I really believe by the end of this year, maybe even the next 6 months, there'll be significant movement on many of these projects. By the end of the year, absolutely. And, it's of course our commitment to ensure that all 7, to the best extent possible, we're able to get them all done. And that's my promise to our board, not just promise to the board. The board's directed to me and the team, and certainly my promise here to the community. So that, I'm sorry.
I just want to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Communion Place is Lakeisha Burt.
Yeah.
I should go over there, sorry.
Yeah,
Would it be nice to have pictures or?
I know. I'm just thinking everybody's standard.
slides?
I know, I apologize. Yeah,
That's what Big Tom's is.
yeah.
There's a part 2 as well, so we'll make sure you definitely get some pictures of that.
And we'll post the link to the pictures in the online chat. So if you go back to the meeting on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, we'll post it there. Okay.
Thank you for doing that. So just a quick aside is that Communion Place, the developer is Lakeisha Burt. Lakeisha Burt was a fellow with the Hill CDC, so it started here. So I just love how things become full circle. And so I wanted to make sure that you know that. We gave everyone a little packet. It has nothing to do, I'll make sure you get one. It has nothing to do with the slideshow. The packet, I just wanted to say quickly, the 3 pages. The first one, it states, I'm trying to show it to Facebook land. Okay. The first one is a front and back. It has all the available programs and services that the URA has that's open to City of Pittsburgh residents. So the one side is all residential, so housing programs, landlord programs, funding, all of that. If you flip it over, also for commercial, for the businesses. So if you're a business owner, it has all of the available programs and services. It lists the amounts that are available, the types of grants, types of loans, wanting to make sure I give those out ad nauseam because I want to make sure you have them everywhere we go, because it's important. Tom has talked about disposition. We're about to transition to the grocery store. You're going to hear that a lot, disposition. I wanted to make sure you had access to the URA's disposition process. So you have it. I'll make sure. So you have access to the disposition process. There's a checklist. So on that other slide, it talked about first step, second step, going to the board action, second board action, all those other things, right? So this is a breakdown. So you have a checklist. Again, wanting to make sure you have that. And then the last piece, which is probably the most important thing that we can provide to you today from the URA, these are instructions to be able to provide public comments during our public board meetings. This is when you are able to voice your concerns publicly. The board directors deserve to hear it. Your voices deserve to be heard. This is how you can make change. This is how change occurs. So there are instructions on here that allows you to be able to either do a written public comment, or you can do a live public comment. Our board meetings are on Zoom, so it's virtual. And so your faces will not be visible, but your voices will be heard. And if you want to provide a written public comment, we will read it verbatim. It will be read verbatim. So that's what this last page is. So please, I'm imploring you to make sure that if you've heard anything today, if you have any questions about what the URA is doing in your community, make sure you utilize the public comment. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I know Abdullah's gonna come up. We have an update on the grocery store.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you. You don't want to hear from me, but I'll say this. So April board, you're kind of frankly among the very first folks here. So the April board, I expect to see action around the grocery store. That we're around the potential, we're working with Abdullah and his team around the potential sale of the Center Hillman Plaza. And that's something that you might see as soon as April. Just stepping back for a second, I think about the why for all this stuff, and I thank my colleagues for kind of reminding me of this. It's our goal to deliver the grocery store this year, by this summer, by the fall. And we've been working very diligently to get that done. We think we have a great partner. We think to deliver what the mission that we're planning to provide, and we will provide, the grocery store for fresh foods, through the Center at Hillman Plaza. So we're excited about that, and we're excited for the direction, and we're excited for the steps we made. We've been working very diligently, on it. With that, Mr. Abdullah, thank you. I'll let you talk about your own groceries. So thank you very much. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Everybody. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for time.
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, good evening, everyone. I thank Mr. Rimba and the Hill CDC. I want to thank the URA for their partnership. Without their partnership, we couldn't be here today. But most importantly, I want to thank the Hill District community, because without you voting for us, we would not be here today. I come to you today, and honestly, I've been running all day. I'm fasting. I left my house at like 7 a.m. So excuse me, but I come to you today humbled. I come to you today as your newest resident. I come to you today humbled. I come to you today as your newest residents. I come to you today with the hope of expectance. And I pray that we will be successful together. Some updates on the new store. We have submitted for permits as far as this past Monday. Permits are with the city. We're hoping to move forward with the store as soon as possible, as soon as the permits are done. I have left some conceptual design photos, actual real photos of the store, where everything that you see will be placed in your store. We come to you today, most importantly, as your community servants. We are here to serve you. This store is only here for one purpose, and that purpose is to serve the Hill District community. We're here for you, and anything that you need, we hope that we can do. I know there's very tight timing. I was only given a couple seconds. It's my fault. I kind of left everything late with the food. I apologize.
A couple slides, pictures there.
Yes, and we're working on everything. I'm gonna be here throughout the whole meeting. I'll be here for all the future meetings. You can always come ask me a question at any time, any question that you may have for anything. Whether you're a vendor that wants to come into the store and sell your product, whether you're a contractor that's looking for some work on the project, whether you're a team member looking to join our team. We're here, we're humbled to be part of your community, and we hope you accept us as part of your community, and we want to be here for generations. And I thank you so much.
There are some pictures here. Do you
Yes,
need to talk
I'd love
through
to
any
go
of them?
through,
Go
yes.
ahead.
So, I left some slides on the store. We're trying to maximize the entire floor space of the store. So we are installing in the center of the store, you'll see, we're installing a 24-foot deli, which would serve all deli needs, whether it's all lunch meats, all prepared products, everything. We have a full bakery that's being installed in the store. Actually, our baker just started with us this March, so we're test baking. I'd like to invite you all for a test bakery sample. Maybe we bring a test bakery sample for the next thing. So this is a true baker that came in. He owned his own bakery for years. We were very fortunate to have him come here. We'll be baking fresh breads, fresh cakes, fresh pies every single day. Of course, our meats, the biggest thing is the meat is our anchor of everything. We will have a big, huge fresh meat section, everything fresh, cut to order. Our meats are locally raised, locally processed. They will be cut to order every day. We have a partnership with Black Urban Gardeners for the produce section. We have a bunch of open space for local vendors. I can't stress that enough. If you're a local vendor, you want some floor space, this is the community marketplace. So it's here for you. And so if there's any questions about what you're gonna see in the store, what you wanna see in the store, what you're hoping to see, please let us know. If you have a partnership that you'd like to bring with us, we're starting April 4th. We will be presenting at the Macedonia Face Senior Center. And we'll be bringing some samples there, and subsequently from that, we'll go to every senior center and present, hopefully to all the churches. If we haven't got you, please reach out to me and make sure we know where you are so that we can come to you. We'll come to you, we'll present to you. We're working on a couple partnerships for deliveries to the senior centers. We're working on a couple partnerships for shuttles to the senior centers. And I want to just stress one thing, and I'll keep going forever until you guys tell me to stop. I want to stress one thing, which is really, the anchor of what we're doing is that this is our anchor location. We're not the former operator that had 7 locations in Cayman, and this was just one of his extra ones that was on the side. We spent years looking for a place to expand. We were approached by developers from everywhere. The terminal developers offered us $100 square foot tenant improvements to go in. They would have gave us $30 million to work on the place to go in there. We didn't take it because the rent would have been too high and it would have changed the way we do business. We were offered a place in Monroeville. We were offered a place in the new East End development. All of them we turned down. When this opportunity was graciously presented as an opportunity for us to present by Marimba, the URA, and Councilman Lavell's office, it was a dream come true for us. It seemed like the perfect place for us to anchor our business. The Hill District will be the anchor of Saddam's business. So we're going to be here forever, and we're here only to serve you. So if there's any questions at any time.
We're gonna take just like 5 minutes worth of questions because we do have a lot to cover still. For the URA and or Salem's Markets. Devon,
Would there be a hot, grill in the grocery store?
Yes,
can
ma'am.
you repeat the question when you
Yeah,
answer
the
it?
question was, for everyone at home, will there be a hot grill at the restaurant? I'm sorry, I don't have the drawings to go through the slide, but there are drawings on the table. In the prepared food section, we will have a full grill. We will have all the things that you can find at Saddam's, plus many more. And the whole process, we're having like all the stuff he's having, we're telling you, but the whole point was we were stuck in a small location in the Strip District. We weren't able to offer everything that we wanted. So this location gives us the opportunity to really give the full side of the experience. So I don't think there's anything, there's only 3 things, I'm sorry. I was gonna say there'll be nothing you'll find. There's 3 things, and these are the 3 that I can't help because it's part of our religious beliefs, but we won't have pork, alcohol, or tobacco.
Okay.
But anything other than or water.
This gentleman and then Levesque.
Are you closing the store on Fifth Avenue?
No, we're not closing it. In the long term, we're looking at a possible housing development in the strip district. So maybe within 3 years, we will be shutting that location in the strip district. This will serve as the anchor settlement location for the whole city.
I just want to say, but you will get the support as long as we get a clean store, well stocked. And feel secure and safe that we want to be able to shop in there. Not meaning that, just want to make sure that you
Yeah.
guys just do that.
Yes,
Clean
ma'am,
store, well
absolutely.
stocked, we want to walk it, everyone see, not one orange, but a bunch of orange.
That was the only thing I had pop up on that drawing, was oranges. It was the only thing that could come up in color, but
Well stocked, it's clean and
And you can keep back, can you repeat back what her
the
comments were?
question was, and it's the best question, she wants to make sure that the store is well stocked, it's clean, and it has fresh produce, and it's fit to serve everyone. And you've stated our mission in its entirety. That is our mission. If we fall short of it, we want you to bring it to our attention right away. And we will be there. You will see us every day. When you walk into the store, you see us all the time. We will be here every day with our families, here to serve. If there's any place where we fall short, we're a community and we'll fix it together.
all right.
Okay, one more question, sir.
We all own the property, we all be leasing it from the URA.
God willingly, we will be buying the property from the URA.
We don't be leasing.
We will be buying the property from the URA.
So, yeah, let me jump in there. So that's what potentially will be at the April board agenda so similar to the other 7 projects I described. You know, we're working with the team here to accept the proposal, to do everything that you just described. To buy the property rather than to lease it, to work through our disposition process. So that is something that, you know, I'm confident we'll go to the April board, but until it's on the board agenda, it's not on the board agenda, but I'm pretty confident it'll be at the April board agenda for that discussion.
And that guarantees we're here to stay. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We've invested everything in this. If this doesn't work, I'm sleeping on somebody's couch. In this room, so.
You'll never see me again. If this doesn't work.
All right, if you can stay for a second, I just want to, so I do want to thank the URA, Tom Link and Tanika Harris, and Kayla Williams, and the Salem's team here. I want to point out that when the DRP process happened, there was discussion around leasing the grocery. And if you all remember, we voted on who our top market was and so forth. They are desperately, I've learned recently, trying to close their financing, which requires some creativity in how the deal is structured. Ownership would relieve some of the extreme debt that would prevent the project from possibly going forward. There's still a gap that that is being worked on with the URA, other potential funders. So you all know we believe in transparency because you can't help if you don't know. Okay, and so so what I have seen is that, you know, just like tonight, this is not the first time that Abdullah and his team have brought free food to community events without even being asked, and a responsiveness to the community that we did not see in the prior market owner. So they did secure the support of the community for the DRP. The update relative to ownership is something that you need to be aware of, and if that's gonna be on the next URA
I think it's, yeah,
agenda.
you should look for it.
Yeah, because the board has to take action on that. And so that is something that you all need to be aware of, and then also that ongoing support is gonna be very necessary. And we don't know all of how that's gonna look. Abdullah, I'm sure would like to corner you and let you know everything that he's put on the line to make this happen. But we're out of time to do that as a broader audience, but I do wanna make sure you all know what's going on. So we're gonna move forward on the agenda. I do thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. We're honored.
For being here.
Thank you so much.
All right, how are y'all feeling? All right, good. All right, so Registered Community Organization Ordinance. How many of you have heard of the RCO ordinance or RCOs? Okay, not enough people, because RCOs are really impacting your community right now. What are RCOs? The Registered Community Organization Ordinance was passed by City Council in 2018. Okay, so it's been around now for just over 4 years. The stated purpose was to ensure community input for all development activities within a designated area. That was the purpose of having the RCO ordinance. When the RCO ordinance status was created, it was for community-based organizations specifically focused on development, right? A lot of people have heard the term and they're like, oh, well, we're a community organization, we should become a registered community organization. It is specifically focused on development and planning. So unless you are involved in development and planning, there is really no service to you trying to become an RCO. However, we do have a number of RCOs, and that's one of the things we want to talk to you about here. The RCO ordinance also, and an ordinance for anyone who doesn't, kind of follow this stuff is a law, right? It's essentially a law. So this is now a city law that developers are supposed to come to the registered community organizations, present, and then you're supposed to have an opportunity to give input, and the city is supposed to document that input and make sure that the developer, at least hears it, which is one of our concerns, because that's not always happening, but we'll get back to that. So the ordinance requires what's called a development activities meeting, also known as a DAM. I think it's funny, it's a DAM meeting. And then also the RCO are intended to be the trusted voice for working in the interest of the community. That's what RCOs are supposed to be, the trusted voice working on behalf of you. Because when they submit their application to the city, that's what they say. They say that we are the trusted voice working on behalf of the community. So you need to know as a resident who your RCOs are. And you also need to hold them accountable to working in the interest of the community, okay? So let's talk a little more about it. Developers are required by law to hold a development activities meeting at least 30 days prior to a public hearing for a list of qualifying reasons, including but not limited to the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Historic Review Commission, and a few other committees. The ordinance identifies and discourages, this is key, the ordinance identifies and discourages multiple different RCOs in overlapping boundaries. So in other words, if you cover this territory, the ordinance says you probably shouldn't have multiple groups covering the same territory, right? Yet, the Hill District has 5 RCOs that have been approved by City Council, specifically City Councilman Lavelle had to provide a letter, and City Planning. Okay, so the Hill District has 5 RCOs, 3 of which have the exact boundaries, and then the balance of the 2 have similar boundaries of others. Overlapping boundaries means that instead of a community RCO convening the community meeting and process, that the city takes over the community process, okay? So whereas before, our development review panel process, where you get a chance to vote, like you will tonight, that used to be our RCO process in the Hill. And then the ordinance got passed, and then we found to be an RCO, some other folks found to be an RCO, it created an overlap, so now the development activities meeting is held by the city of Pittsburgh. Okay, so that's what an overlapping boundary creates, and that's why it's such a challenge. Developers, again, are required by ordinance to meet with an RCO in a given area. So on March 1st, City Council held what's called a post agenda. A post agenda is a meeting that happens after, essentially after a normal council meeting or between a normal council meeting where they have testimony. I testified, and City Planning testified at the invitation of the council president. And we got a chance to talk a little bit about how the RCO ordinance is playing out in the Hill District. And so they are engaged in a survey right now to collect information about how you feel about RCOs and what RCOs should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, how they work. There's a survey here that my staff is going to be handing out to you. The deadline is tomorrow, so I need you to cheat a little bit today at the meeting. Oh, they extended it to April 2nd, but we still like to collect them because we need them to get in. Because right now the developers are filling them out. We love you, Mike. But we know that the developers are filling out the RCO survey, and this is it. If you don't have one, raise your hand, staff will bring you one, okay? City council members themselves have expressed concern about developers no longer coming to their office relative to developments, right? So we don't know if the motivation is to increase input or just to get developers to come back through them. You have a question or you need a survey? Okay. A range of issues were discussed at the post agenda. Here's the impact of multiple RCOs in one neighborhood. Overlapping boundaries lead to city planning reviewing and deciding upon formal development activities meetings. Okay, that's the first thing. Weakens the community input process. The overlapping boundaries, not the RCO ordinance itself. The RCO ordinance requires developers to come and talk to you. All right, but the overlapping boundary essentially then let city planning take over your community meeting, okay? The multiple RCOs can give status to community groups who have never engaged in development activities in your neighborhood. And it does not protect developers, and this has been a problem in the Hill District, that we are not protected from developers meddling in our RCO process. So in other words, if a developer has the gumption, we do have one in our neighborhood who does, has the gumption to meddle in the process, they can stand up an organization on their own and secure RCO designation, and then start popping up at all of the commission meetings saying, we support this plan. Okay, because then now they're an RCO. You may have never met this group, you may have never heard of this group, but all of a sudden, they speak on behalf of you because they drew their line around your neighborhood. Okay, there is not sufficient protection or enforcement at the city planning level to ensure that this doesn't happen. And that's why we have an issue within our own community. So let me finish these slides and go ahead.
I was just wondering, I thought they got rid of redlining.
So the comment is, I thought that they got rid of redlining, and I'm gonna say not in every way, right? And so did you have a question, Mike? No. Okay, I thought I saw your hand down. Okay, the other issue is it can delay and halt development. So whereas if you have one RCO, a developer is like, I know who to go to, I know who the group is in that neighborhood, I'm gonna go to them, they're gonna hold the community meeting, everybody knows that they're gonna hold the community meeting, I'm gonna get a score, a vote, a letter, whatever the process is for that given community, and they're clear. Right now, developers are hopping around to 5 RCOs in some cases, in the Hill District, 4 or 3 in most cases, trying to figure out how to navigate the process, right? So it can work if the RCOs are collaborating, but if you have an RCO, for example, where a developer has meddled in your process and the focus is to keep divided so that they can speak on behalf of the developer, then you can't collaborate because you can't, as they say in the old days, you can't marry somebody who doesn't want to marry you. All right, so collaboration is not always possible. It is ideal, okay? Also, it confuses developers and the community, right? Because if there's a community meeting and somebody comes to the community meeting and the developer is presenting, and then the developer is presenting to you again through another community meeting, half the people you don't know, half the people you do know, it's confusing to both the developers and the community. This is some of the feedback that we need to make sure the city understands. It also allows, excuse me. It also allows for miscommunication and misinformation, okay? Because people are getting different presentations, people are hearing different narratives from different developers, right? So a developer comes to us and they say A, B, and C, they can go to another RCO and say D, E, and F. And now we're trying to reconcile as a community if sufficient communication is happening, which one it really is, or is it both? So these are all some of the things that we're concerned about. It also can cause infighting if some of the groups refuse to collaborate in the best interest of the community. Okay, so this gets back to my earlier point. So our biggest concern has been that we know that a private developer has meddled in the RCO process. That's our biggest concern. Our secondary concern is that we want to make sure that the people are saying that they speak on behalf of the community, have a record of speaking on behalf of the community. Okay, like that it's just not some group who steps outside tonight like, we'll become an RCO, right? And so it's very important because legally they are speaking on your behalf. So when you hear those letters, be sure to ask questions. The positive impacts of the RCO ordinance. Developers are required by law to have a meeting with RCOs under this ordinance. Now, although it is required by law, it's not enforced. So you know what they say about a law that's not enforced, that it may as well not be a law at all, right? And so there oftentimes is not a specific penalty to developers who don't. There's what I would say, soft encouragement from the city to go and meet with the RCOs in the neighborhood, right? And in most cases, they try, but if they don't, and there are multiple, city planning may forgive them a little bit. Probably not in the Hill. This is, they know we can get a little feisty in the Hill, but it happens. And this is not just unique to the Hill District. This is across the entire city, okay? Positive. It forces the city to document community concerns. However, there is no partnership with RCOs in creating the final reports to ensure we heard the same thing. So what does that mean? A city planner is going to come to a development activities meeting. They're gonna document what they heard, but they're gonna document it through their lens, right? They're not gonna transcribe it verbatim, right? They're gonna just take notes and they're gonna provide that to the decision makers on what you said, right? We don't get a report at the Hill CDC that says, this is what we heard at that community meeting. Are you in agreement? Are we missing something? There's none of that, right? So a case in point, when the Lower Hill Block E project was had a dam back in October, when I got the notes, it was maybe a page. But anyone who attended that meeting, you know that that 2.5-hour meeting generated a lot more feedback than one page, right? And so it's very important. And then we don't really know where to find the information that they documented. Like, I personally don't, so I'm presuming you probably don't, because I don't know where I can go to see how they transcribed and interpreted our feedback. So, excuse me, I'm sorry, I think I'm back accidentally. And then the other positive is that it provides an opportunity, if willing parties are able, to engage and build rapport with other neighborhood groups who are genuinely involved, okay? So the Hill CDC is an RCO. The Hill CDC wrote the DRP process into our RCO application. There's an application that you have to submit to city planning to get approved. You have to get a letter from your city council person. Once you get those, normally you get approved. So we wrote this process where you vote, it is in our formal application. We have to follow this process because we put it in our application. Other groups may say, we have a Zoom meeting and then we just assess what we think is best. And that's what we send you all in terms of what the community wants, right? And so again, there are 5 RCOs. The Hill CDC DRP process ensures transparency. You can find all developments cut on www.hilldistrict.org/DRP. Any development that's ever been submitted to the Hill CDC on behalf of the Development Review Panel, you can download every single document we have received from a developer at that website. And if you don't see it, call us and you can ask me personally, and we'll make sure that the problem gets corrected, okay? And then I wanna get a little feedback. I saw a hand, so I'm gonna take a couple of questions. Before I do that, I do wanna let you know who the RCOs are, okay? So Hill CDC, we cover the entire Hill District is our boundary, okay? The Hill District Consensus Group, they cover the entire Hill District. They came after us, they cover the whole Hill District as well. Uptown Partners, who Sabrina Miller is with, they cover Uptown as we traditionally know. They come up into the Middle Hill just a little bit to Caldwell Street, but it's largely Uptown, also known as the Bluff. And the Shelley Heights Collaborative is everything from Heron Avenue up. Okay, so that's Sugar Top. And the Hill District Collaborative, who also covered the whole Hill District neighborhood. Okay? So with that said, I want to make sure that we answer questions on this specific agenda item, then we're going to go into a few updates, and then we're going to go into our DRP presentation. Yes, Denise.
Since I'm not from here, maybe you can clarify things for me. Is there a chronological order that all of these RCOs occurred, were created, founded?
There was a chronological process. Hill CDC, I think Uptown filed for Uptown first. Hill CDC came in shortly thereafter. We covered the entire Hill District. No, Shelley Heights, I think, was the first for Heron Avenue and up. Then Uptown came in for Uptown. Hill CDC covered the whole boundary. And then the Consensus Group, maybe a year or 2 after that, came in, covered the whole boundary, and the Hill District Collaborative came in lastly and covered the whole boundary. Okay, so that's the chronological order. And again, the ordinance actually says that there should be no overlapping. It says we strongly discourage overlapping boundaries, right? And it's okay with, like, the DRP has members from Uptown Partners, from the consensus group from other organizations around the table at the panel level. So for us, if you're on the DRP, you should really be collaborating. But yeah, so that's the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
Does, zoning still going to effect and notifying the community about what the developer is doing? And the type of project you're doing, does that get applied or required to your organization? to have
Yes.
Awareness of that before they leave the foundation?
There is, but there is not sufficient notification provided, but remember, the city took over our process because we have overlapping boundaries.
Yeah, but the zoning.
So, but zoning is under the city, right? So the city planning department will notify us because now the developers aren't necessarily having to come to the RCO. They're going through city planning. And if anyone who knows what's happening in the city planning is really strapped right now, right? Really limited resources. And so we're getting maybe in some cases 14 days notice, definitely in some cases also 10-day notice. Now, you all know, we almost always get out notice for many weeks in advance for our meetings. And then in the final hour, we'll just make sure you all get as many notifications as possible. So it's really not enough time, which is one of the problems. But yes, zoning is included. Yeah.
It's gotta be posted.
Well, it doesn't have to be posted on paper on a poll, but it has to be shared electronically.
No more polls over.
No more poll zoning posts. Ms. Ellis and then Richard.
Are the ROCs focused on homes or business? Residential or
It can be both, but it's largely for larger development, but it can, if you're, say you were trying to change, you needed a zoning variance for an improvement you were making to your home, you would actually have to have a development activities meeting for that. Yeah, and more recently, we've learned that the media is monitoring our development activities meetings, right? And so things that are said in the development activities meetings oftentimes might show up in the newspaper, right? So it's no longer kind of like a community setting that you're used to. It has changed the nature of our involvement with one another and as a community. Richard?
Are there other neighborhoods in the city that have multiple RCOs?
There are other neighborhoods that have multiple RCOs. Again, the process is you apply and you have to submit your application with a letter of support from your council person, and then city planning will largely approve it. And if your application is not complete, they'll work with you to try to get it completed in those circumstances. I don't know how many communities have overlapping boundaries, but there are some who have overlapping RCOs. And that was one of the points of concern that came up at the post agenda from some of the other council people there. Shadisha?
Facebook,
Okay, question from the chat.
is the city takeover permanent?
The city takeover exists as long as the overlapping boundary exists. So if 2 or 3 groups withdrew and there was no longer an overlapping boundary, then the community group that was the RCO for that area would facilitate that process. But as long as there's an overlapping boundary, the ordinance actually says shall, which is a legal term that means you gotta do it. Yeah. Okay? Yvonne?
is there a process that we can ask Lavelle to eliminate one of the RCOs?
Yeah, I mean, Councilman Lavelle's number is 412, this is a shame. 412-255-2134. That's Councilman Lavelle's number, 412-255-2134. You're free to call and give input. I would strongly suggest that you fill out this survey and leave this survey with us, because that way I can make sure it gets to the city. Okay, and then there's also a digital version, which the link is up here, for you to fill out, all right? But you can call your city council person and say, hey, we need you to, not do that again. Now, the designation lasts for 2 years, you have to renew every 2 years, okay?
The last one they did 2 years ago or last year?
So people came in at different times, so like Hill CC just got renewed.
The last one who came, the last RCO they got approved.
Yeah, they're probably coming up on their 2nd year, yeah, over the next. Hmm. Yeah, so, okay, so they'll have another year, okay? Yes, ma'am. We do have some stuff for the youth that's coming up next on the agenda. Yes.
I was worried about that because I just want something to be done with you, maybe a building or something.
Mhm.
I was just wondering about that.
So let me first say this, and I hear you, and I acknowledge what you're saying and how critically important it is, but everything we do is for the youth. Because right now, youth are walking up and down Center Avenue and their neighborhood dispirited that they see half of their neighborhood as vacant lots. I hear you, but I'm just saying that the psychological impact, there's an author called Mindy Fullilove, she's a psychologist, and she did a study. And she named the condition called root shock. And root shock is when your neighborhood changes and transforms so much during your lifetime that you're psychologically traumatized. Right? I'm gonna talk about that a little bit when we go through this demolition stuff that the city is doing. Right? And so we're not a direct service provider for the youth. We partner with others to encourage activity, and we do have some direct activities that Jordan's gonna talk about shortly. Okay, but thank you for the question.
I've been taking cause my little nephew delivered to Simple on Penn Avenue,
Mhm.
and I just wish that we could have this. You're in Simple?
I understand, oh, absolutely,
Wish that they would have it over here.
absolutely.
I'm tired of going over there. I wanted it in Hill District. You ever heard of it?
Amen.
It's in Garfield. It's very nice in here.
The audience,
They going over on, Von Boulevard now. It's really nice for the kids. They got like, junior team and everything. That's why I was, I'm tired of hearing about fucking. I want something nice, because that's why I was wondering about the old library that was doing.
yes,
They gonna do it now.
the old library on Dinwiddie is now the Family Center for the Center for Family Excellence. It's,
I don't know.
yeah, it's been that for a while. Unless they, I don't think that they
They
relocated.
going with Martin Luther King. I'm feeling it.
The Martin Luther King building is actually going to be for youth. It's going to be, a science center. It's called Okay, yeah, if you follow us, we do a Hill District Weekend Roundup, make sure you read that. But it's called the Citizens Science Lab, and they've acquired rights for the redevelopment of the Martin Luther King Reading Center.
I can't wait.
All right, so I'm now going to ask, Chavasha to quickly cover our, first, let me give a little context. As you all know, Center Avenue is our commercial corridor. We are focused on building a Black cultural, commercial, and innovation corridor that is steeped in our community's history, okay? In order to do that, we need both programs and buildings. And so Chavasha is gonna talk about a program called Hilltech Society, and then Jordan is gonna come up and talk about some of the programs for the young people. Yvonne?
The survey asked about the DAM, DAM, can you tell people what that is? So they can fill out
Say that again.
the survey, it says, do you use DAMs? And another number of questions asked about.
The DAM. Right, so as a part of, so the question is, can I explain what a dam is? So